The game is like Haze World. It's a bit of a strange idea, but the idea is that the main character goes shopping, gets overwhelmed by the crowd, and then reimagines the mall to be Tasmania. The other big part of the game is it's only a puzzle game. There's no combat in it.
Mhm.
I love puzzle games, but so many puzzle games have just puzzle after puzzle after puzzle, and they never have any story involved in them. And I always thought, why not make a puzzle game that's got some story and something to do besides just puzzling? So yeah.
Fair enough, simple idea.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know. How long do you want me to tell you about it?
No, you can go on for as long as you want to. No, I think that's an interesting idea. And the first thing, like, when I first saw the gameplay, I was like, okay, this is like a neat little puzzle game. This is cool. I'm not big on puzzle games myself, but during that demo you had at AvCon, there was the segment when you get to the mall for the first time, and I'm sure there are other bits later in the game that are like this, where you see, like, the world start to crack apart. You start to see the main character. Their name is... what would that be? Nim. You see Nim's world, like, break apart, and it was like this sudden change in vibe, and honestly, for me, that was the thing that got my attention. Like, the puzzles are cool, but, like, that sudden change, that was really cool to me.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Like, one big thing that we wanted was puzzle. The other part was we didn't want puzzles that were hard, like too hard.
Right.
There's so many puzzle games I've started and I've never finished because they're way too hard. So the puzzles are kind of like the doing thing to relax your brain in a weird way. Just doing these, they're not easy, but they're not hard. They're mediocre kind of puzzles. They give your brain some focusing, and that helps your brain relax. And then the whole story is about anxiety and that. So it really does play to a lot of people that sometimes find the world a bit challenging, and then they have these puzzles that they can sink their brain into for a little bit of time, and that takes the rest of the world away. So it kind of works in that way, I guess.
You mentioned you don't want to make the puzzles too difficult. In the demo that was at AvCon, I don't know if that's a demo as in like a vertical slice or like a demo as in the start of the game.
That was the actual start of the game.
Okay.
Yes.
So I would assume the puzzles, like, judging by just like the gameplay trailer loop you have on the website, it seems like the puzzles do get somewhat more complex. In the demo you had, like, they were very, very easy to start. It's like, oh, it's like basic block puzzles. Like, you've got blocks arranged in a way, match the pattern that you see on the thing above it. There was the wasn't there one where you'd like connect wires or something?
Correct.
Yeah. So what is the point I'm getting at here is, like, how difficult do you want to make them? Like, how long would somebody who is first approaching that puzzle reasonably take on it? Like, do you want it to be something where someone legitimately could get stuck, or do you want it to be something where it shouldn't be that much of a barrier to overcome?
Well, it's
like, let's say, like, hardest puzzle
here
in the game, like that. Let's go with that, like the absolute pinnacle point of where you want to get to.
All the puzzles were designed with this idea of having a moment. So in saying that, the puzzles don't actually break. They, you know how you like play a lot of these block pushing puzzles, and if you could kick the boxes enough, they'll actually get locked in, and then you have to reset it, and then you have to try and figure out what you did wrong and all that kind of stuff. You can't lock in the boxes in this puzzle. They're forever kickable. So you can just keep kicking and kicking, and then eventually you go, that's what we're trying to do. And so it just probably takes people a little bit longer, but eventually if you just keep kicking stuff around, it'll sort itself out. That's the idea for those things. The other kinds of puzzles are memory-based puzzles, and so they're a little bit of memory. So you can technically cheat if you want to. Like, I know I've played some games with memory-based puzzles, and I'll take a screenshot or whatever, so because I can't remember stuff that well either. So that's a thing too. But it was all about the idea that people could do these puzzles, and it's not like you had to be the smartest person. It's more of the engaging your brain to do something. So they never get to a point where I think people will get out. What does happen in the game as you progress through the game? The puzzles change into different puzzles. So they're always you're always trying to figure out what to do in the puzzles, and that's kind of the puzzle.
Right.
Instead of being stressed out and they're getting way more overwhelming. That's not really the case.
Yeah, I do see like a laser dodging puzzle in the trailer you have, and there's one where there's like a you got to memorize the path through like a bunch of spikes. So the idea isn't necessarily that you're gonna make these core mechanics more complicated. It's you're going to introduce different styles of puzzles, and that's going to introduce the sort of like the a bit of mental challenge there.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. Because, I mean, I loved playing The Witness, and there's a few puzzle games that I've played, Talos Principle, and I just get to a point in the game when I think, I'm not even enjoying this.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I'm just, I get to a point in the game where I think, I'm not even doing this now. I'm just looking this stuff up because it's way too hard. And why was the front so satisfying? And then you almost get to this point in the puzzle game where you think, maybe that puzzle, maybe the puzzle's just too good for me. Maybe this game's too big for me. And I give the game credit, and I think the game's amazing. But then I think I'm not all that clever. Where we've taken a bit more of a almost mobile game approach to the puzzles, where it's about getting through the game and enjoying being in that moment. Yeah, like the Zelda. Have you played like the new Zelda games? And you look at the puzzles, especially in Tears of the Kingdom. You look at them and go, I know what I've got to do. I've got to get that block over there. Or I've got to get that to there. But how do I do it? And that's the thing that I love about puzzles.
Right. So you want it to feel like there's some sort of intuitive way to approach it rather than being, I don't even know what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, that's the way I think about it. You've got to. That's why, for example, you talked about the electrical puzzle that we did, and part of the reason that is a puzzle is you've got two wires coming out. Now, one wire goes one way, one wire goes the other way. So if you follow either of them wires, they lead you to the next thing that you're supposed to do. And then you know that those wires have to be connected. You don't know why they have to be connected necessarily, but you know that that's a thing. And by designing the game in such a way that people look at it and go, I know what I'm doing here, but I've got to figure out how to do it. Then you get these really fun moments, and you feel kind of satisfied doing the puzzles then. So, yeah.
When you talked about the puzzles not being like failable, I think back to, I assume you've played like the GBA Pokemon games, like Pokemon Emerald, things like that. No, you have? Okay.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
No, okay.
So in the, I don't know if there's a thing they still do. I don't know if it's still a mechanic, but in those older games, there were puzzles, and a lot of other games do this, right? Like look at any older games, there's like boulder puzzles where it's like, okay, you have to move the boulders in a certain way to get through a path. And there were ways that you could, in many cases, move them where you would push it against a wall and then you lose access to that side to be able to move it. So you can't actually fix it from that position. So I did notice in the puzzles you have with those block puzzles, there's always like ample space where you can access the blocks from any side of them. And that completely eliminates that problem then.
Yeah, there are some puzzles where I've designed them where you can't access them from one side, but that's part of the puzzle. But you can always access them from a different side to kind of move it a different way, or you might move it back to where you brought it from. But you're not locking it in where it's a point where you go, oh, I can't do anything now, because I dislike that in a puzzle. There also is, for the memory-based puzzles, the spike puzzle, for example, you can lose at that and have to do again.
Sure.
We had this mechanic where you if you step on the spikes, you'll die, and then you'll just get respawned to the start of the puzzle. So it's kind of resetting it automatically for yourself. But when we first started off with that puzzle, we had it that you couldn't die because we wanted to make it more cozy, more friendly. And then all I did was jump across the spikes, and I got to the end, and I thought, well, what's the point of this? Now it's not become a puzzle game. Now it's become something else. So sometimes you have to have consequences in the game to make a mechanic enjoyable or intense or feel rewarding by having those things that will then take you down or change the way that you look at that puzzle.
I do still think there's a place for a maze-like situation where you can't die, but it'll have to. The way I would approach that is it would need to be a bit more complex, and you'd do something like an invisible maze, right? Where you would. There's a path to get through it, and you're not really sure about the path, but maybe you include some sort of hints where people can get through it, but at the end of the day, you could still, you can follow one wall and eventually you get to the end of a maze. That's just how mazes work. But I think there's definitely still a place for that. But for spikes, it seems like it makes a lot more sense, right? Like if you walk onto the spike, something bad happens, right? Like that's just like an established sort of thing that happens within a game. And in real life, you step on a spike, you're not going to be happy about it.
Yes, that's correct. And in one of those, I think in multiple Zelda games, they've had invisible mazes where you've had to go through a forest. And then the same thing happens there. If you take the wrong direction, you respawn at the start of that maze and you have to figure it out again. So having a consequence sometimes is important for a puzzle to have its, it can't be just, you just walk through and find your way out. Or that wouldn't be so fun.